Good evening and welcome to Touch by Prayer. I am so excited to have my special guest back on. She is a regular here on Touch by Prayer, Amie Rogers of Raw and Real Ministries. And I'm always excited when a friend of mine is going to be starting something new, and that's one of the things that we like to do is we like to promote other people's adventures. So we are really excited about what she's doing. It's called the sounding board. Speaking of sounding boards, my goodness, I am I'm still dealing with this cold, so you'll have to excuse me, but I'm super excited to have her on the broadcast. So please welcome back to Touch by Prayer, Amie Rogers. Hey,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I don't see any I'm not seeing any I don't see any people's comments, so not quite sure what that's about, but
Yeah, well, my sound was like glitching out, and I'm like, I wonder if there's something up with my connection, or maybe there's
no,
just
I think there might be
something going on.
be some foolishness happening. There might be some craziness amongst us. So, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm
Doing good.
excited.
I am too.
I
Yeah,
think
I was kind of thinking about the last time I actually did like a broadcast just kind of on
mhm,
my own. I mean, I've done a lot of collaborative stuff over the last few years, but I think it's been like 2 years since I've done like one just
mhm.
on my own, but, it's a new season
It
for
is.
all of us, and, so I'm looking forward to what that looks like.
I think it's going to be fantastic, actually.
Yes.
And I
I
think that one of the things that God is really doing is there was a word from Lana Valzer. Did you see that word?
no.
Okay, so Lana Valzer came out with a word. About 4 days ago, about 3 4 days ago, and she basically said that there are people who have been called to the media mountain, but there have been all kinds of complications. There has been all kinds of attacks against their voice, or it's just been this never ending battle. It's a never ending battle, you know? And so that's kind of what I've been feeling. It's like, all right, Lord, I'm like, so what are you gonna do? What is it that you're looking to do? Because I really believe that like everybody's podcast has a different feeling. And I know that you've done a couple different ones, but this one I think is gonna be a little different. Yeah.
It's definitely gonna be different. I it's like, where your lane is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what your
Mm-hmm.
mantling is, but there's a part of us that, I've been feeling really pulled, in and outside of the realm of what I would consider churchy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's not anything against the church or negative. It's just
Mm-hmm.
this different element where um, I'm feeling the need to facilitate a place to just kind of be the conduit for the Lord to speak through, to have these conversations that
Mm-hmm.
maybe churches aren't having.
Okay.
Maybe there are people that are within the church that aren't quite comfortable
Right.
having those conversations. And, it kind of falls under, for at least me, that Jeremiah 1:10, where we're going to
Mm-hmm.
uproot and we're going to tear down what
Mm-hmm.
God never planted or built in
Mm-hmm.
order for him to establish. And I think a lot of that comes into just real life struggles, real
Right.
life living, and how does this practically look? What does this look like as we walk out our life? And in the past, I've done a lot of the Bible studies, or I'll share prophetic words, or whatever it is, and that might still happen.
Mhm.
But I want to really have those difficult conversations, and
Right.
the kicker, I believe, is really going to start going after those religious wounds,
Yeah.
what the church has approached in a wrong way and what the church has refused to approach. So I think that's really where the starting point is, where that, you know, any
Oh,
shot in happens, and
mhm.
um, and we're just gonna kind of let it roll.
Yes.
But in a sense, I don't want to title it marketplace ministry, but that's really what it is. It would be like I'm leaving my front door and I'm gonna go out to a park or a restaurant or whatever, and
Hmm.
just have those conversations and let the Lord do what He wants to
Yes. Yes. And that's kind of the thing is so many.
do.
I think that there have been so many topics that have been taboo, but like, well, you and I were like, "Pfft, there is no taboo.
No. What's taboo? I don't know.
There is no taboo. Like, we're willing to talk about whatever needs to be discussed. It really doesn't matter. We're like, okay, well, we're just gonna get through it. We're just gonna say what it is, and we're gonna be raw, like just like your ministry, Raw and Real Ministries. That's one of the things I loved about your ministry is that you were willing to talk about the hard stuff. You're willing to say the things that other people who are so afraid to talk about. Hi, everybody! I see everybody popping in. I know it's been people can't seem to get in, so now they're starting to get in.
Probably
So
all delayed, like the
yeah,
first.
I know, right? It's been one of those things, and I really do believe that that some of the topics that the churches really can't talk about because they just can't, but you can
Yeah.
because we don't want to when you're in a church environment, it's like there are certain things and certain protocols that you just you're just not going to deal with for the betterment of the church. However, on a conversation like this where it's like, hey, everybody has a voice and everybody has an opinion, let's go ahead and share it, and even if we don't come into an agreement with it, at least let's be honorable and hear each other's perspective and see what God can do with it, because I think that's part of the thing. Like, I always but you know me, I'm always like, I want to do things like ninja style. I want to do like Jehovah sneaky. I don't necessarily have to tell people um that I'm a follower of Christ Jesus, but hopefully by the way that I live my life, hopefully by the way that I speak up, that they'll see something different. But it's not like we have to throw it down people's throats in order um to help people become aware that this is something, because we're trying to create a safe space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you begin conversations, even, difficult ones,
Hmm.
when you look at like there's a validation that comes, right?
Hmm.
When you're discussing some of these things that may have put people off from the church,
Right.
right? Let's just kind of
Hmm.
approach it from that angle. There have been a lot of people that have refused to go back to church as they know it
Yep.
because there hasn't been that safe space within
Hmm.
those four walls even. And in that, there comes this rejection or judgment or whatever, and I can speak to that a lot. Um, but I think when you begin to approach these subjects, it's not the whipping post,
Mm,
it's the healing balm. And
that's
it's
good.
validating what has been done and how the truth can actually set you free
Yeah.
from those wounds and from the ones that inflicted those wounds.
Hmm.
And I think that's really what street ministry is about. It's not
Hmm.
about going out and reading people's mail, although that does happen.
Yeah.
It really is sitting down on the sidewalk and having a meal with that person that maybe is without a home and
Hmm.
finding out their story. And so that's really like my heart really with this sounding board is that it is a public sounding board.
Yep.
I want people to hey, what would you like to hear? What
Hmm.
is something that you have not heard talked about within those four walls that you would like to have some perspective on, that you
Yeah.
would like to find some answers on? Like, that's what that is. Kind of this round table discussion.
Yeah.
And, and if the Lord leads me to bring a scripture into it, great. I'm just not limiting him to what
Hmm.
that is. And I think that is the main theme that I've seen over what he's been speaking to me personally and
Hmm.
through me over the last several years is like, let me stretch out your tent pegs, right? Like this ministry, this the giftings that are set within you, it's not just for the church people.
Mhm.
It's not just for the religion of charisma. It's not just for this small group. It's for the whole.
Mhm.
And so that's really where I feel that pulling into, because I think that there are many, many out there that would be very much intrigued and want to attend what I would call an Acts 2 church,
Mhm.
and not the structure that we have made it,
Mhm.
or the Jesus that we have Americanized, or that hierarchical, structure. I mean, there
Right.
is an order to all things of heaven, but I think we have ruined it in
Well,
our own
I think
ideas of it.
I think that what we're seeing is we're getting um I want to say we're getting a do-over. I think we're getting a do-over because because the stuff that's being exposed, the stuff that's going to be dealt with, people are going to have questions. They're going to have lots and lots of questions. I really believe that like what are some of the questions, like how did God allow this, or like I'm dealing with talking to a relative who was in a very bad accident, and it's like it's like even the perspective that they have. Well, if God can get around to it, or if he feels like getting around to it, I'm like, whoa, it's so that's so like that just breaks my heart, because I know that person is not the only person who thinks that. I know that there are so many people who have that wrong understanding about who God is, and they think that they're bothering him, and that they can't go to him with every little thing, and that as long as I have enough money to get through today, I'm not going to bother him because I'm good, and it's that orphan mentality, and I really believe that as a lot of this stuff comes to light, we're going to be dealing with a lot of people who are going to discover that they're orphans and that they need a good father.
Yeah, and I think, there have been so many broken filters that
Hmm.
we perceive things through, especially God.
Yes.
And really, when you reduce it all down, we've all had our filters that we've
Yeah.
placed
Hmm.
over God. And I think, a lot of times there's so many, it looks more like a broken mosaic instead of,
Yes. Yep.
something else. And
Yep.
I think if we can begin to kind of take one layer at a time and go, yeah, this isn't God. This was put on you by somebody else in their own brokenness, right? And
Hmm.
and how we facilitate releasing those people, and releasing that forgiveness, and removing your idea of who you think God is, and also
Hmm.
removing our ideas of when we think he should be a certain
Hmm.
way. And I think my friend Kimmy said it best the other day. She's like, I was frustrated with these things and looking to God to show up, in this situation, and yet here I am standing in the middle of my miracle, and I was unaware of it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, we do that so often, like, because it's not this sudden miraculous big thing,
Yes.
that we're standing in the middle of it all. And I think in the middle of it all is in these beautiful little conversations
Hmm.
that bring some perspective shift, that allows us to kind of see, maybe this is our pig pen moment with this situation. Like,
Hmm.
oh, wait a minute, I'm not eating food, I'm eating slop. And if I just get to the Father's table once again, then I'll remember what real food tastes like, and I'll
Come
get
on.
to see the goodness of God in the land of the living. And that is, I think, really how things are being facilitated. I'm seeing a massive growth expansion
Mm.
over all of us, over our own hearts,
Hmm.
over kind of our mission field in our mind, and outside of ourselves, and the things going on in our lives, where we actually become the continuation of the Acts church. I've
Mm.
talked about this for years and years. I'm like, why aren't we doing this?
Hmm.
But I'm seeing the uptick that we actually are.
Come
And
on.
I'm not frustrated by what I was not seeing. Now I'm excited about what I am seeing.
Yes.
So
Come
I
on.
think that's really what it is. And that Acts church was the living rooms, the streets, the restaurants, the dinner table. I mean, it was going out into and
Mm,
healing the sick and raising the dead and just speaking truth and purpose. And
mhm,
that is what I see over every single one of us. We don't
mhm,
have to do a broadcast. I mean, that's just where I'm being called. But for
mhm,
all of us, like, what is your Acts 2 mission? Like, that's kind of where I've been asking myself, what's my Acts 2 mission? What does
mm,
my living room look like? What does my dinner table look like?
mm,
And what is my sphere of influence at this moment, right? And
mhm,
so there's this evangelical pull that I'm seeing, ignited over many of us.
mhm.
There's all these things that we do,
Right.
but are we finding the lost? Are we looking for them? Are we taking time to take in our environment?
That's it. And I think that so many people, when we think about, like, taking care of, like, our environment, right? I think one of the things that we, you and I've talked about this, which is, endure. Endure until he returns. We have to be good stewards, not only of the gifts that God has given us, but of the people that God has placed in our lives and the opportunities that God has given us. Because every now and then it's like you don't know, like if you can go out, if you can go and hang out, like my favorite thing to do is like to be out and about, to be like, all right, let's go reap some mail. let's just go, and so wherever we go, it's like, we're all prophetic. Come on, let's go do this. It's just my go-to. It's like, this is what I want to do. And it's like there are things inside that I know are coming to a place where it's going to be birthed, because there's a need. People need to know that God talks. People need to know that God hears them. People need to know that He knows everything about them. Because that's the thing. Like, a lot of people are like, well, it's important for us to go and to preach the good news and everything. Yeah, but what if the good news is just that God knows that I like macaroni and cheese? I mean,
Yeah.
no, I'm being so serious right now. But to somebody who thinks, well, yeah, God knows all my bad things, but does God know, like, something good? Like, does God know that I love macaroni and I like macaroni and cheese? I'm just using this as an example. But that's the thing, is like, okay, there's so much more. There's so much more to God than what we've told people. And I think that this is what God's trying to do right now. Excuse me, especially because of this great awakening that's coming. Because people still be asleep. People still be very asleep. And so when what's going to help them to understand that God is good is that, well, God's known everything that's been going on, and He had a plan, and you're here because of this plan.
Oh, yeah. And I think because of the charismania, would
Mm,
you say that
mhm,
that we have tried to hoard
mhm,
signs, wonders, and miracles for our own personal lives.
mhm.
And my Bible says that they're for the unbeliever. Now, are they for us? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They absolutely are. But they are for the unbeliever.
But
And
but let's take that a little bit further.
I mean, there's deeper and further, but yes, go ahead.
Yes, because I know a lot of people who call themselves Christian, but they're not believers. They're unbelievers.
Yes.
They don't believe that God still speaks to them. They don't believe that God can speak. They think that that's been out. They don't believe in raising the dead. They don't believe in casting out demons. They don't believe in that. Those are the unbelievers. Like, we have to start to stop to disqualify anybody, and we have to say this gift is for everybody. It's for
Yes,
everybody.
it's for every single person,
That's right.
but it is exactly how the Lord wants to show up in that person's life and in that
Yeah,
situation and in that moment,
yeah.
right? Like I grew up in the non-denominational denomination.
Mhm,
And, we just kind of skipped over the book of Acts,
mhm.
because and we don't talk about the tongues, we don't talk about the gifts, we didn't do any of that, it
Right.
was just kind of like now granted, I was a lot younger, so maybe my dad taught on it when he was pastoring that church, I don't know. But
Mhm,
I don't recall anything about Holy Spirit in my upbringing,
mhm,
right? And then fast forward to post young and dumb years when I start going to an Assemblies of God church, there was some of that there,
mhm.
but there was so much more that I was seeing and dealing with that it really was my own journey of like, okay, where is that in the Bible? And
Mhm.
if it's in there, is it for me? Right? I
Mm.
had to have that question.
Yeah,
Like if it's in the Bible, is it actually like still real?
right.
Because this one verse says you were the same yesterday, today, and
Mhm,
forever.
mhm.
So if what you wrote yesterday is for today and in the days to come, then I want it. Like that
Oh,
was my thing. It's like, Lord, okay, if this is for me, then I want it.
yes.
And so then as you begin to step into a place where you're standing in front of somebody else, like, Lord, whatever it is that they want,
Mm.
help me be the conduit
Mhm,
to bring it to them.
mhm.
Like, let me partner with heaven so that heaven can be in this moment for that person so that they can too see how real you are, the way I saw how real you were multiple times over in the whole of my life.
Yes.
It's not just the big healing miracle when I was 19. It's not just this or this. It is every day. And
Mm.
so it's like when we kind of get out of our own way
Mhm.
go, okay, there is something here for somebody.
Mm.
The signs, the wonders, the miracles, and it's a miraculous and beautiful thing. Like when you're talking to somebody, like what you're saying, where God is saying, "What is it about butterflies that you like? Or what is it about mac
Yeah.
and cheese that you like? Is it
Mhm,
comforting? Does it remind you of something?" It's this beautiful dialogue. You're stepping in and being the
mhm.
hands, the feet, and the voice of Jesus, and that's what we're all doing in our day-to-day lives. It is our marketplace. Our lives are our ministry. Our lives outside of our bedroom and, out of our front door, that's our
Mhm.
marketplace. That is an opportunity everywhere we go. Am I
Yep.
the most obedient all the time? No, but I'm trying,
Yeah.
and I
And
just feel like
that was
somebody
one.
needed to hear that.
Well, and that was one of the things, like, being in the marketplace, and that's where my ministry actually started, was at a cosmetic counter. So, it just so for me, like, I can talk to anybody. I can talk to anybody about anything at any time, anywhere, no problem. And I will find something because when you have to, "Hey, Holly," "Hey, Steph," when you get that opportunity, and I've seen what God has done, and I know that he's fun, and he likes to have fun, and he gives us these opportunities to say, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do, and are you willing?" And then it's like, "Yes, let's go do this," and so we get to be a part of it. We get to have fun with him. That's part of the thing, and having these really difficult conversations, but having it from a place of love, having it from a place of compassion, of complete like empathy and sympathy, and just helping to meet the person where they are without any judgment. I just have to put this out there. I love it when people are like, okay, it's not judgment if it's correction. No, it's judgment.
It's judgment.
Sorry. I'm
You're
sorry.
judging.
I'm sorry. Like, I know you want to just say, no, no. Okay. If it's correction, if it's because you love the person, then you're going to keep it to yourself. You're not going to go plaster it all over Facebook. Just saying. So
Mhm.
I'm just saying. So and this is not has nothing to do with me.
Mm.
This is something that I've been seeing a lot of. People think that they think, well, we're supposed to tell everybody. We're supposed to tell everybody these dirty little secrets. No, no, because when Jesus said, "Where are your accusers now?" When the woman was caught in adultery in the very act, right? In the very act, that's when he's like, where are your accusers now? Neither do I accuse. I kind of, I go to that. That's kind of where I am. I'm like, I'm gonna stick with that because this is this is so much. Let's put it that way. I think it was Robin, Mama Robin, and I were talking yesterday, and she said, like I think about like it's better for you to throw yourself into the sea than to hurt a little one
Mhm.
because we don't know where somebody is. We don't know. And this is, I love that you said this, Holly, because I always think about Noah. And you and I've talked about this, Amy. We've talked about his son. I think it was it Shem.
I think so.
Was it Shem that when and he saw his nakedness?
Yeah.
He saw his nakedness and he went to go and tell his brothers, "Come and see dad, he's naked." Well, let me just put things in perspective. I've been on a boat for 40 years, or for 40 days on the high seas, hearing all kinds of God knows what, with people probably banging on the door trying to get in. It probably smelled really, really bad. Not only that, I've been building the ark for how many years? How many years I've been building this ark? He gets to a place where he can finally enjoy himself, and he has a little too much to drink, and he becomes naked. I'm not saying it's probably your best moment, but I'm going to give you I understand.
Right. Right.
I get you. I understand. We've all, we there are times in our past that we've done things that were like, yeah, that probably wasn't my brightest moment. But however, um, but when he goes and he tells his brothers about it, his brothers, what they do is they take a sheet and they walk in backwards because they don't want to see him naked. That's how we're supposed to be with people. We're supposed to cover their nakedness. That's how we're supposed to. We're supposed to not even look at their nakedness. I don't want to see your nakedness. Amy, do you want to see people naked? I don't even want to see myself naked. Just saying. I don't need to see anybody else's nakedness.
No. And I think when you yourself have endured a place of humiliation, um, you don't want others to deal with that. And the word says, only the Lord knows a man's heart.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can see the fruit of things,
Right.
yes. But if we're stepping in front of somebody to have a conversation, they need to have a safe space
Mm-hmm.
to know that you are going to walk into that conversation backwards. You're
That's
going to
right.
honor them
Come on.
in their brokenness. You're going to honor them in their nakedness. You're going to cover them not with complacency, not with compromise, but with the truth and love.
Mm.
And any type of corrective things that
Mm-hmm.
come from a place of relationship,
Mm-hmm.
not like, "Hey Joe, I see all your dirt. Let's talk about that." You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like there's a place and a time for correctiveness. And most people, 99.9% of the people, I mean there's a small percentage who don't think they do anything wrong. We'll just say that. But most people already know where they fail.
Oh, absolutely.
And we don't have to point it out, and the Lord's not gonna point it out.
Mm-hmm.
He never did. The
No,
only time he ever pointed out faults was to the religious people.
that's right.
Took time to make a whip for them, turned over the tables on them. He sat and ate with the ones
Come on.
who the religious rejected. So, if we need some perspective, that right there is all we need.
And I think that's the whole thing is to be able to have a conversation and say, "Hey, you're an atheist. Tell me why.
Yeah.
I would love to know. Now, the interesting thing is, are they going to be able to have a conversation without getting all angry and tripped up? Are they going to be able to have a calm conversation? Do you know what I mean?
And
Because
even at that, like, that's on them,
oh
right? Like,
no, I know.
if we aren't, like, reactionary
Mhm.
and we respond to their reactions
Mhm.
in that I mean, they're more than welcome to get up and leave that conversation at
Yeah.
any time. Any atheist I've ever had a conversation with, at some point, even in a joking way, I have found that they actually believe in something. They have been I'm like, "You need to, like, redefine your atheism because really you're more, what is it, agnostic,
Yeah.
where you just don't believe in
Yeah.
God. You don't
Yeah.
believe in Jesus." So that's more definitive for you. Okay, but now I understand
Mhm.
where you're at.
Mhm.
Now tell me what brought you to that place? Like, I
Right.
wanna know your story.
Yeah. It's funny when I think I might have shared this with you, but my son Alex, when he was 17, like 17 or 18, we were in the car, we were having a conversation, and he said something about God. And I said, "So you don't believe in God anymore?" He goes, "No." He goes, he says, "I'm an atheist." I said, "You're an atheist?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay." I said, "So you don't believe that there is a God?" He says, "No, no, I believe that there's a God." I said, "Okay." And then I said, "So you don't believe in Jesus?" And he goes, "Oh, no, no, I believe in Jesus." I went, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, then you don't believe that Jesus is the Son, the only Son of God, who was crucified on the cross and was resurrected from the dead?" He goes, "No, no, I believe that." I said, "Okay, then you don't believe that there is a Holy Spirit that came down and still lives here and lives inside of all of us and still talks to us?" And no, 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 I believe in that too. I'm like, okay. So he goes, "No, I believe in that." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "But I'm an atheist." I went, "Okay then." I was like, because so many people, like, he's 17. He didn't quite understand what he was saying. What I think he was trying to say was agnostic. I think that's what he was trying to say, but he didn't understand. And so I think a lot of people, through conversations, they sometimes miss, like, what do they believe. I think that, like, there are so many people right now that are believing something so different than anything that President Trump decided to give it a new name. So they're now panicans. So and so it's this new party, panicans. You can panic today, I'm panic tomorrow, I'm panic the next day. So you're panicans. But and I'm joking about it because I think that people come up with new definitions of things because they really don't understand what they're against, or they don't understand what they're for half of the time. They're following somebody else's narrative, and it hasn't become defined for themselves.
Yeah, I think, they've a lot of people have begun parroting somebody else's opinion, and they don't even know what their own is.
That's
Um,
it.
I think I mean, we all have a story. We all have ignorance. And
Hmm.
I think when we can honestly sit down and say, "Listen, I don't know all the answers to this. I'm trying to form my own thoughts
Hmm.
around this subject or this idea or whatever it is." And, you know, and what about your story has shaped your thoughts about this particular subject?
Hmm.
Like, like teach me, you
Hmm.
know, like help me, like chisel away at some of my ignorance,
Hmm.
right? Because I think if we operate in a high level of ignorance, we also flip into a lot of arrogance where we think we know everything. We think we have the right answers.
Hmm.
Yes, I know I have one solid answer that I'm not ignorant about, and that is the Lord.
Right.
you know, but how do I reveal him in a way to someone who hasn't met him yet? And
Right.
how do I start removing the blinders of my own eyes and theirs at the same time
Mm.
in a conversation that is full of honor and respect, but I don't have to compromise where I stand in my beliefs. And
Yes.
I think as we do that, the Lord brings about a way for us to let Him shine.
Mhm.
Like if it's reading their mail or giving them a different perspective on maybe
Mm.
something that they're dealing with, if it's a relational tension.
Mhm.
Like, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about maybe this person's perspective? And because you're so hurt, you're only seeing it like a tunnel vision kind of way.
Right.
It's that sounding board. We are all sounding boards for people all around us.
Mhm.
And if we don't charge into a conversation as that CEO dictator like stance,
Right.
and we actually round table it
Mm.
going, "Hey, I have some ignorance around, some atheism or some agnostic
Sure.
beliefs or some of the new agey ways that you're looking at things." I mean, I don't even know that I can call it new agey. I don't know. It's just an
Yeah.
alternative way of believing something. Like, help me understand how you have arrived at this place that you're at right now. And
Mm.
I see that you feel at peace about this. But then we begin to approach it from a different conversation. And so I really think that if we look at everybody that we encounter as an opportunity to have a roundtable discussion, like, you have something to teach me.
Mhm.
I know you guys have heard me say that a lot. Everybody has something that I
That's
can
right.
learn from them,
That's right.
but I'm also not going to diminish or devalue what I carry because I know I can teach them something too.
Mhm.
But it's in my willingness to learn that will give me the opportunity to teach.
Yeah, and I think that so many people that, so somebody I don't where I know where I read it, but they said that the gospel, the true gospel is it's so persuasive that you don't have if you just tell people the true gospel, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to convince them. They're gonna be like, "Where is this Jesus? I wanna know this Jesus. Where is how do I become a born again Christian? How do I do that?" And I think a lot of times it shows the ignorance of us because we're not answering the right questions.
Right, or we're refusing to answer some at all,
That's right.
and that in of itself
Mhm,
sparks a level of disdain,
mhm.
and it almost appears to the onlooker that we have elevated ourselves into a place of righteousness
Yeah.
that gives us permission to look down our noses
Mhm.
at somebody else that doesn't believe the way we believe.
Right.
And I think that in of itself has been a long-standing whipping post that many have encountered.
Yeah.
Like, I have yet to meet somebody that has not endured some level of abuse
Mhm.
or mistreatment by the church.
Yeah.
Again, and I'm not bashing the church. I love the church,
Mm.
but the church has to heal into the bride,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And so we're speaking on both sides here. We're
Mhm.
speaking to the world and we're also speaking to the body of Christ, remembering that the church is not this country club, but it's actually a hospital. It's
Mhm.
messy,
Mm.
it's not perfect.
Mm.
And so, how do we facilitate the coming together of both? Because, like we
Mhm.
were saying at the beginning, there's all of this awakening, all of this uncovering.
Mm.
And even the world is seeing biblical prophecy laying out before them.
Mm.
They have questions.
They do.
So where is the world gonna go if the church is bleeding?
Yeah.
So it's like, where do we bring all of this together? Where do we find the healing? It's around a round table,
Mm.
and it's having very uncomfortable conversations. And maybe it is looking in the mirror for just a moment.
Mhm.
The Lord never pulls us into self-introspection, but He does let us go, okay, this is what I need to look at, and this is what I need to deal with.
Mhm.
It's like cleaning out your closet, right?
Right.
You have to approach that hoarder closet that you've just been avoiding, or it's the hoarder drawer in the kitchen.
Yes.
At some point, you have to open it up, pull stuff out so you can reorganize and make sense of it all.
Mhm. And I think that's such a valid point because, you know, having a roundtable discussion, I mean, that's what a lot of, conservatives are trying to do with a lot of people who are liberals, and they're like, "Okay, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about this." And the biggest problem is that they get so angry, you can't have a conversation. So I think that, being able to to talk about things in such a way that that's going to give people so they don't feel that there's being spoken down to, but that they're being heard. I think that's it. So many times that, we're doing things and it's like, but are we listening to the things that people are saying? That's one of the reasons that I love having an interactive chat, because if I can see something, if I see something that's there, I can address it. And that actually happened on a broadcast, which I was so very grateful, because there was something that needed to be addressed, and I was like, oh, no, 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 that's not what we meant at all. We had to, and it wasn't backpedaling, but it was like putting the brakes on. Okay, we're gonna pause right here, and we're gonna deal with this because this is important. It doesn't matter about anything else right now. This is what's so important, and I think that, um, because as long as you continue to have your own agenda, then you forget that you're actually supposed to be there for Papa's agenda.
Yeah, and realizing that it's not just hearing, it's listening, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And, I've always joked, the Lord gave us 2 ears
Uh-huh.
and only 1 mouth, you know? And,
Yep.
and I've been, a big big person where I think I've got 2 mouths sometimes,
Yes.
but I've learned through a lot of, humiliation and into humility, you learn those lessons,
Yeah.
fast and hard or slow and painful.
Mhm.
And, and I think, as we do that, we really just also in all of that, there's the practicality side of it, right? But
Mhm.
then it's also what we do know. And that is they're getting I don't want to say they and us, right? Because I
Mhm.
feel like that's divisive in of itself.
Mhm.
But there is something much bigger at play here. There is this spiritual war over this. There's this
Mhm.
spiritual divisiveness. There is this disruption to communication.
Mhm.
There are filters in the spirit being placed over eyes and ears, like how we perceive, how we hear things, and even how we articulate things.
Yes.
And as we step into these places, like we have to fast and pray. Like that is our mandate. Like
Mhm.
if you are a professing believer and you're not praying, hello,
Yeah.
like we have to partner with heaven. We have to wage war in things of the spirit so
Mhm.
that when we step into that round table, peace is instantly felt. Like
Mhm.
whatever things are being carried into that place, like
Mhm.
they got to be checked out at the door, right?
Mhm.
Like you can't bring your critters in here with you.
Mhm.
I'm not bringing mine.
Right.
You can't bring yours.
Mhm.
And so we have to understand the much larger, much more real picture
Right.
of the things of the spirit, and that's why we're seeing such a violent upheaval over a simple conversation, and it's because everybody wants to be the loudest and the proudest at the table,
Mm.
and we're not utilizing our senses in the order and the proportion in which they
Yeah.
were given. Our mouth should be the last to open, and our eyes and our ears should be the first doubly.
Mm.
So, that's really, what that is, and the percentage that is so violent and so angry, like, if you look at that, it with spiritual eyes, it is so demonically charged,
Mm.
it reminds me of that Frank Peretti book, This Present Darkness.
Mm.
It's very descriptive when
Mhm.
you're reading this story. It literally is the demonic entities that are sitting on the head, that are sitting on the shoulder, that are latched onto the back, that are, vomiting and, all the gross stuff
Well,
all over these people.
yeah,
And
and that's
it's
what,
it's a blinding,
mhm,
and they're filters, and
mhm,
they're almost muzzled, and
mhm,
they're almost in spiritual straitjackets, and they only know to thrash and fight. And so
mhm,
when we begin to see these things on a spiritual plane, it's how do we begin to speak to those things? How do we cast that down? Not the person, but
mhm,
cast down those things that are causing them confusion
mm,
and causing us confusion, right? Let's like
mhm,
we can't exclude ourselves from this prayer. Like,
right,
Lord, if there's any confusion around me, if there's anything that might be, you know, filtering me and how I'm seeing things, how I'm saying things, how I'm, hearing,
mhm,
it's got to go.
right,
Check all that stuff off. Get rid of it.
mhm,
And if you once you see that, then you'll get strategy if and when you are to approach it.
yes, yes, I agree with that, and I think about, like, Blake Healy's The Veil. Let me just tell you something, after you read The Veil, you're like, "Okay, hold on a second." It's like, you wanna keep yourself so clean. You wanna keep yourself so clean because the way that he describes, these demonic entities, it's just like you're saying, they're, like, puking on you, sitting on your head, sucking on your neck, like big old ticks. Think of them as ticks. That's what they are. They're great big ticks, and they are just nasty, nasty, nasty. Um, but that's kind of the thing. Thank you, Franklin. One of the big things is like, okay, so we know we battle not with flesh and blood. We battle with principalities and powers and wickedness. We understand that, and so we're dealing with that right now. But what happens when the veil gets lifted? What happens when that veil gets lifted and these people start to realize that they've been drinking a Kool-Aid that was bad for them? What's going to happen to those people when they realize that they were convinced to do something that they really never wanted to do, and then they did it because of peer pressure and whatever, and now they're stuck? The church has to become so compassionate, not an "I told you so." Not, well, you made your bed, now lay in it, not like that, but just that place where it's like, hey, we've all made mistakes. There were times like my mother would tell me things. My mom was a conspiracy theorist. I never knew that. Never knew that. But she would tell me things. She was like, they never went to the moon. I'm like, Ma, how could you say that? They never went. She goes, they did it. I mean, she had it all. She did the whole thing. And I'm like, now I'm like reading stuff and I'm like, my mom knew. My mom knew. And it's like, oh my gosh. Oh, you just got that in your last care package, Brother John. Oh, you're gonna love the veil. You are gonna love the veil. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. So, but that's the thing. It's like some people actually know more than they say. There are people right now who are just are a part of this movement. They don't even know why they're doing it, but they're going to wake up. They're going to wake up. There are people who've left the church because they got hurt or they got wounded. Like, they're going to wake up. And so it's going to have to be a place where they can come and they can find a place where they can pull up a chair and say, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody because I need some questions answered." I think that's exactly what the sounding board is going to do. But it's more than just a podcast. This is actually this is a weekly podcast, but it's also there's mentoring, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to like really categorize it. It's because I don't, it's not coaching, it's not counseling, but I feel like the Lord wanted to put me in a place with giftings that He's set inside me to offer up just a sounding board for one
Hmm.
on one for people. Um,
Hmm.
because sometimes we just need that third party, the one
Mhm.
that's like an outside perspective on
Mhm.
things. And so that's I just told the Lord, I'm like, I'm just gonna be obedient,
Mhm.
so it's called sounding board sessions. And it
Mhm.
really is just whatever it is that you need to talk about.
Mhm.
Sometimes even though some of us might be internal processors,
Mhm.
we need to verbalize those things.
Mhm.
And I think having that opportunity to sit and have that conversation, and if
Mhm.
you want, I'll pray with you.
Mhm.
I'll ask the Lord what he wants to do in that time. But it's you being intentional with that time as well, and
Mhm.
investing that time into yourself to find that solution, that
Mhm.
healing, whatever it is that you're feeling pulled into, that maybe
Mhm.
you don't want to put in the chat on a public broadcast.
Right.
Totally get that, you know. So really that's what that's going to be, and it's just going to be whatever the Lord wants it to be. I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of my tagline. It's just whatever the Lord wants. I'm
Yeah.
just going to be obedient. I'm going to be intentional, and let him do the rest. But yeah, so that's what that's going to be.
I think it's gonna be fantastic. What are your expectations for it?
The one expectation is to see healing.
Mm.
I really feel like there's so much that needs healed. People
Mhm.
with, their identity, with just the main one on my heart right now is just the religious wounds. Those are so deep and they continuously bleed, and they
Mm.
bleed all over everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it affects everything,
Mhm.
because when it distorts who Jesus is,
Mhm.
um, then it removes the opportunity for you to be open for him to show up in your life.
That's good.
And so that's really my heart tug, because there's so many people that I know that aren't a part of the church,
Yeah.
that have a very bad taste in their mouth. I'm
Mhm.
like, I get it. I get it.
Mhm.
My dad was a preacher and a counselor.
Mhm.
That was not a fun childhood,
Mhm.
but he was a broken man.
Mhm.
And so I ran hard and fast away from the church,
Mhm.
because I couldn't stand the hypocrisy. I couldn't stand the judgment. I couldn't, and I couldn't live up to, "Oh, the preacher's kids must be so perfect." Yet no, I took great delight in
Yeah.
showing them how imperfect I was.
Yeah.
And so I get that side of it. I ran away as far as I could, and I was on self-destruct mode. So I get it. I was angry at God,
Mm.
because as that little girl, I'm like, "Jesus, I know you're real. I asked you into my heart when I was 6 years old,
Right.
and you didn't rescue me
Mm.
from
Come
the
on.
abuse. You didn't rescue me. You didn't change my circumstances.
Mm.
Why, 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 why?" So at 13, I was like, "I'm done with you. You're not real anymore."
Yeah.
So it's like, I get that. Like, I lived that
Mhm.
in my own story. And I know a lot of people have that story in
Mm.
varying degrees.
Mm.
And so I had to heal from that religious abuse. I had to heal from the abuse that broken man that was my father inflicted.
Mhm.
And so I had to walk through all of these facets.
Sure.
I don't think that I endured all that because God allowed it, but
Mhm.
he certainly takes all of that pain and all of the ashes from our past, and he turns it into something beautiful, and he's given me wisdom for that.
Mm.
And I think that is why he's calling me to do this at this point in time.
Mm.
Because of what I learned and because of what I walked through, I have the authority to speak to those things,
Yeah.
and I can give that perspective and let him heal what it is that he wants to heal, and release what he wants to release, and speak what he wants to speak. So that's really my heartbeat for all of this right now.
Well, I think that's beautiful because, um, that's I believe that's the Father's heartbeat. I believe that's what he wants because we can't you guys are too cute. Amy and Kevin, they're just so stinking cute. They are. I love you. I appreciate. They're so stinking cute. I just can't take it. So I had to give them a shout out. But I think um that the Father is he's preparing those that are gonna be the safe places to say, hey, I get it. Especially being a preacher's kid. So many preachers' kids, they run, they just run away. They just they just don't want anything to do with it because there's I think for a kid it's hard to share your parent with Jesus.
I think it is when the parent has their own struggles and they don't know how to navigate it.
Yes.
And that's what it was for mine, you
Yeah.
know? Again, like, he was a broken man.
Yeah.
He was a good man, but
Mhm.
he was broken,
Mhm.
and he had his own things, and he only had certain tools in his tool belt as a dad.
Mhm.
There were other things that he walked in his life
Yeah.
that as an older person and into an adulthood, I looked at that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that is right where he's supposed to be." And it was amazing to watch
Mhm.
what he did and how he worked with people. I mean,
Mhm.
I still hear from people today that my parents' lives touched.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they did. But back here in this chapter, this childhood chapter,
Mm.
was a lot of flaws and a lot of brokenness that took me a while into my adulthood to heal
Mhm.
from, 'cause I lived my life very fractured
Mm.
for a good chunk of it, and it was because of certain things back here and then other things that I did myself, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't blame everybody for everything.
Yeah.
And so there's all of that, and I think when you have people that are in ministry, I mean, you have a target on your back. There's just no getting around it. You have a
Yeah.
target on your back
Yeah.
and your household.
Yeah.
And so you have to know how to navigate,
Mhm.
how to steward those
Mhm.
relationships
Mhm.
and the call
Mhm.
and boundaries and
Mhm.
all of those things. Like, you have to know how to do that. And my dad back there just didn't know.
Mm.
And so there were things that happened that probably shouldn't have,
Mm.
but they did. And so, there's this learning and growing where I've learned from his mistakes and I can
Mhm.
say, yes, the Lord might be calling me into something ministry. I
Mhm.
always ran from that title, that little, but our lives are that. And so I learned my family will always be first.
Yeah.
And everything I do outside of my family is always at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
It's not that people are at the bottom of the list, but my family will always be first.
Yes.
My
Family
kids
has
will
to come
always
first.
be there. And
Mhm.
so I learned from that so
Mhm.
that I don't create those same things. It's that generational cycle
Mhm.
breaker. And
Mhm.
that's what I see happening with people that are getting healed too. Like, they're like,
Mhm.
okay, I healed from this. I won't inflict those same wounds.
Right.
And we are all breaking those generational things
Mhm.
that were not good, but
Mhm.
we are growing the things that were good. We're
That's right.
growing the blessings, we're breaking the curses.
Ooh, that's so good. That's a good word right there. That's it. We're breaking the curses
Growing the
and
blessings.
growing the blessings. I love that. I think that's super important. Well, I was gonna ask you, is there so you're gonna start it this Thursday, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So how do people subscribe to it?
So it's gonna be a live broadcast, just like this on all the
Mhm.
socials. So it'll go to my Facebook and YouTube and Twitch
Mhm.
and D Live. I think those are the only ones I'm streaming to right now.
Okay.
But,
So it's
yeah,
gonna be YouTube, Facebook, D Live, and Twitch.
yep, yep,
Okay. Okay.
yep, and that'll be Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern.
Mhm.
I always give Eastern time because that's the easiest one to calculate from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that'll be every Thursday night, and then as far as the sessions go, that's just gonna be, if you wanna sign up, that's all on my website, and, you can go to the resources tab to look at that, and then
Mhm.
we'll talk about calendar and scheduling and all that. So,
Okay. I was going to say, would you like to pray for everybody that's here?
oh,
Like
absolutely, absolutely,
and just
always.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, Holy Father, I thank you for this conversation. I thank you for just beginning to open up the doors, open up our eyes and our hearts to what you want to do and facilitate through us in this new season that we are in. Lord, I thank you for everything that you are doing for us as well. I thank you for the healing of everyone's hearts. I thank you for the healing of somebody's back tonight, that the pain is going to leave. I thank you for everything that you are walking us to, walking us through. Lord, I just praise you and I thank you that you are moving in such a mighty way. And I pray that we all just like partner with you better, that we just keep those tent pegs stretched out wide, that we don't shove anything in there that would block what you want to do. Lord, just keep our eyes open, keep our ears open. May we remain intentional every moment of every day the way you are intentional with us. And I just praise your name in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Amy, for the love of us, wants to know what's your D Live channel.
I think it's at Raw and Real Ministries.
I think so.
I think that's what it is. I tried to keep everything like
Hmm.
continuous.
It's this is part of the thing. It's like you try to keep everything consistent, but I think it's at Raw and Real Ministries is what I think it is. Yeah. So that way people can go and find it. You also have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Okay. And then also you can go and find her at rawandrealministries.com, which I don't know. I had everything like put up and I can't seem to find your stuff. This is like the second time this has happened, right? The
Yeah,
last
well,
time
and
you
on the homepage of my website, like, I
uh-huh.
think I have all of the social links on there, so you can, like,
Okay.
click and it'll show you the thingy,
Okay.
whatever it is, the technical stuff,
Where's Linda Jones when you need her?
right?
Where's
She's always
Linda?
on the
I
ball.
know. Oh, I know where she is right now. So she's with Roger and Robin on
Oh.
Discovering Spiritual Keys.
Ooh.
I know. So let me see. Let me just make sure this is right. And whoop, and Real Ministries. I think this is right. I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
go.
it's all spelled out.
Yeah, I know.
Raw.
I have to check my Raw and Real minute. I'm telling you, I don't know.
I always have a typo.
Right? I do. Oh my gosh, it's so funny because I'm like, ah,
It's like you try to do it so fast and you're like,
yes,
"Oop, nope,
I
that's
think
not the
that's
right
it.
letter."
I think that's it, right?
Yep, that is it.
RonRealMinistries.com. Okay. So
Yeah.
there you go. So I think that if you guys go over, you can go and find out all information about, and you can also they still can subscribe because you sometimes have blogs. So you can get
Yeah.
on, I
I
think
try to
you have a mailing list, correct?
Yeah, I try to do an email update. I do not trust me. I'm not that coordinated or consistent.
Oh, you're better than
So
me.
so your inbox will not be flooded by me. I can promise
Mhm,
you that. But I do
mhm,
try to do updates here and
mhm,
there. So
which
maybe
is
you
good.
might hear from me twice a month, if that.
Hey, there you go. There you go. If people are interested, you can go to rawandrealministries.com. Don't forget, you're going to tune in to this Thursday at 8 o'clock. It's called The Sounding Board. It's going to be super great. I'm so excited for you.
I'm excited too.
It
It's
is.
a
It's
new
going to be
season for
great.
all of us, and it's
It is.
definitely something different, and
I
I'm a
know.
little
I
I'm a little
know.
like, "Ah." No.
Do you feel any, are there any things that you feel that you want to share before we get off?
Um, no.
Okay.
Let me think for a second.
Okay.
Um, I'm not getting anything.
Okay. We're not getting into
Other
anything.
other than the other than the back, whoever has the back issue, is that you?
Mhm.
Okay.
My back is screaming, and I went and I had a massage today, so I'm not quite
Mm.
sure why. I think it's the chair.
Oh.
I had a thing that sat in the back that kind of prompted me up a little bit. So,
Lumbar support thing.
yeah, a little bit. So, Patriot Girl joining, but hello, Touched by Prayer family, much love. Eli, okay. Hi, Patriot Girl. Okay, yeah, it's not sciatic, it's a tightness. Not quite sure what it is,
Well,
but
if
it,
it's part of your back and you got it, take that
yes,
because
I'll take
I
that.
just, like, went, "Bleh," and
Mhm,
I'm like, "Ooh,
mhm, I
somebody's got back
do.
stuff going on." So we're just gonna speak
Well,
healing over everyone.
oh,
With
it's Heidi. Hi, Heidi. Thank you. Thank you so much, Travis. Hi, Heidi. I miss you, Heidi. So nice to see you here. Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in. We're gonna end because I have to save my voice for tomorrow because you can hear me. We're having some yeah. So there you go.
healing over that too.
Prayers for back. Thank you. Thank you, Patriot Girl. Thank you, Heidi. You're so sweet. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to check out, like I said, if you want to go to Raw and Real Ministries, you can go and check everything out with Amie Rogers. You can find out that her broadcast, which is going to be called The Sounding Board, is this coming Thursday, 8 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Oh, it was
Absolutely, I love you. You're always welcome on. We'll have to have you back on, and we'll have to see how the sounding board is sounding.
yes.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget tomorrow, Crown Jazz, 8:45 every Monday through Friday. Tomorrow, I have Frank Cintonzi. Frank Cintonzi. He's going to be back on. We haven't had him on it in a while, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great night. Be a blessing to others. Don't forget to go out and touch someone and let them know that God loves them. Love you. Take care, guys. Bye bye.